Have you ever found yourself in a situation where, even after saying everything you thought was necessary, you still felt like you had lost? Have you felt that painful knot in your throat, as if each word spoken had pushed you further away from your own inner strength? Maybe you live surrounded by people who are loud, interrupt, mock you, and disguise their arrogance as confidence. And maybe, deep down, you've believed that being silent was a sign of weakness, that not defending yourself meant surrender, that staying quiet meant losing. But what if I told you that this is nothing but an illusion? That real power has never resided in words, but in their deliberate absence. Yes, silence can be power. NZ, one of the most misunderstood thinkers of all time, saw a truth that few dare to acknowledge. Those who talk too much reveal too much. Those who need to convince are already in a weaker position. Modern society teaches us that we must fight, that we must explain, that every conversation is a battlefield for our truth. But nature suggests another path, more subtle, more lethal, and infinitely wiser. NZ believed that silence is not simply the absence of noise, but an overwhelming presence. Silence disturbs, it destabilizes, it forces the other person to look inward. If you often leave conversations feeling ignored, invalidated, overshadowed, then this video is for you. If you're tired of being the one who tries to keep the peace while others take advantage of your calmness, listen carefully. Maybe you have confused your silence with submission. But today, we will show you that silence can be your most powerful weapon. That true victory does not come from winning an argument, but from never having to enter it in the first place. So let me ask you, have you ever tried to explain yourself so much that people respected you even less? Share your story in the comments. Your experience could help someone else. Because right now, we are about to look at silence in a whole new light. Not as a passive escape, but as the ultimate response. Picture a heated argument, someone throwing insults, waiting for you to react, to explode, to fight back. And you simply stand there, calm, unmoved, silent, watching. At that moment, they will start questioning themselves. Why aren't you flinching? Why aren't you defending? This is what NZ meant. Non-reaction is the strongest reaction. Within silence, there is a tremendous unknown, and the unknown, more than anything else, is what people fear. It all comes down to one truth. When you no longer need to explain yourself to be accepted, you have already won. Society tells us that arguing and defending is strength. NZ revealed something more subtle, that the first person to jump into a debate is often the weakest, because they cannot bear the discomfort of not being understood. And in that moment, they lose control. Most people do not debate for the truth. They debate for power, to preserve their fragile egos. But in doing so, they hand their weak points to the opponent. The more you explain, the more you expose. Could you let go of that urge to prove yourself? Let us know in the comments. If you remained silent one day, do you think you'd feel stronger? Have you ever wondered why we feel such a powerful urge to respond, to argue, to correct, to prove ourselves right? Why, the moment someone challenges us, we feel this overwhelming need to defend our truth, as if our entire self-worth depended on it. If you look deeper, you'll find a fear hiding behind it all. The fear of appearing weak. We have been conditioned to believe that if we stay silent, we are surrendering, that we are letting the other person win. But NZ showed us how dangerous this belief really is, because behind that fear is often a fragile, oversensitive ego. The moment it senses disagreement, it triggers the fight or flight mode, turning any conversation into a battlefield for defending our identity. Every opposing word feels like a personal attack. Every debate feels like war. NZ was brutally honest about this. Most people are not seeking truth in arguments. They are seeking power. They want to maintain their sense of control, their position of superiority. Because if that gets shaken, their fragile ego collapses. Think about the colleague who keeps questioning you at work, even when you've already explained your plan clearly, pushing and pushing as if they cannot let go. What they want is not answers. What they want is to protect their own sense of power. Have you met people like this? Share your experience in the comments. I want to know. NZ warns us that if you constantly feel the need to justify yourself, you have already lost. That need shows you are still tied to their approval, still trapped in their rules. He called this the herd morality, the code of living built by people who always crave acceptance, who want to appear good, righteous, correct. But it is precisely this that keeps you weak. Real strength is being able to stand in your truth, even in the face of criticism, rejection, or misunderstanding, without losing your balance. NZ made this crystal clear. Your true power is not measured by how many debates you win with words, but by how calm you stay when the world around you is on fire. He described the strongest as those who remain quiet, because they are not hiding behind excuses or exposing their emotions. They are simply observing, with a cold clarity. They have nothing to prove, and that makes them powerful. Just imagine a room full of people arguing, voices getting louder, but you just sit there, still, listening, with a calm that makes everyone uncomfortable, like a hunter waiting in the bushes, knowing exactly when to strike. Now let me ask you, if you started tomorrow by saying less and observing more, what would happen? Share below. Your thoughts might inspire someone. If these ideas connect with you, hit the like button and make sure to subscribe. In the next part, we will go even deeper, breaking down how to transform silence into a true tool of dominance. There will also be a practical, relatable social scenario to help you apply it right away. Stay tuned, but then a natural question comes up. If we refuse to argue or justify ourselves, how can we ever show our strength to others? If words might betray us, how do we let people feel our power without speaking a single sentence? That question is so real, right? Since childhood, most of us have been taught that whoever speaks loudest wins, that dominance must be expressed through constant talking. But NZ flipped that script on its head. He proposed something bold. True power is felt precisely when you do not need words to be recognized. This power comes from absolute self-mastery. NZ believed that the person closest to this ultimate self-mastery is the Übermensch, the overman, a being who stands above herd morality, who is no longer pulled around by emotional games or endless debates. They don't join the chaos because they are the ones who set the rules. They shape their surroundings by their very presence, not through arguments but through a calm, overwhelming sense of being. Imagine this: a heated meeting, people yelling over each other, fighting for attention. You sit there, silent, unshakable, your eyes calmly scanning the room. Slowly, the noise softens. The loudest voices shrink. Why? Because human psychology is built this way. When faced with someone who doesn't react, our minds rush to fill in the blanks. Have you ever told a story and someone just stared at you with no response, no emotion? Immediately you start wondering if you said something wrong. That creeping doubt. It can eat you alive. That is the power of silence. It acts like a mirror, forcing people to look at themselves. And countless psychological studies confirm this. In moments of confrontation, the one who stays quiet is usually perceived as more powerful, more confident. Because silence isn't an escape, it's control. You might ask, so should I stay silent in every situation? Of course not. If silence is just passive surrender, then it becomes weakness. But if it is a conscious choice, then it becomes an unspoken declaration of war. Let's picture a modern social scenario. A troll tries to bait you online, throwing insults and jabs to get you to react. They feed on your emotions. Your rage is their oxygen. If you respond, you fall into their trap. But if you refuse to reply, holding your silence like a shield, eventually their words feel empty. The troll starves, their attack collapses. Let me ask you, have you ever been baited online and chose to remain silent? How did that go? Share your story in the comments. I read them one by one. NZ had a powerful metaphor. The first one to jump up to perform has already lost. If you are always quick to defend, quick to react, then your opponent only needs to pull your strings and you'll dance to their tune. But if you become the observer, reading their fears, catching their contradictions, you climb above the battlefield. It's like in martial arts. The one who strikes first often exposes their weakness. When everyone else is caught up in their emotions, but you stay steady, you instantly become the most dangerous person in the room. Here's another story for you. I knew someone whose boss would constantly belittle him, use negative comments to break his confidence. Most coworkers would react emotionally, trying to defend themselves and getting more stressed. But he chose to stay calm, saying only a simple, "okay," and letting the boss talk himself out. After a few months, the boss grew bored because there was no reaction to feed on, and stopped. That's the power of strategic silence. It makes attackers lose interest. Coming back to you. What if the next time someone tries to humiliate you, you don't fight back with words, but with calm silence? Think about it and tell me in the comments. Brother, if you've followed this far, you're seeing the outline of a brand new life philosophy. Don't underestimate how powerful this can be. It can completely change how you interact with the world. Brother, if you really want to win, you have to see this chilling truth. Every debate is like a theatre, and the first person to jump up and act has already lost. Most people, the moment they hear criticism, explode like a powder keg, desperate to defend themselves, to argue, to explain. But NZ warned us, that's exactly how you get trapped. Reactive thinking is always a conquered mind. If your mind is being pulled and twisted by someone else's words, you've already lost your advantage, no matter how clever your answers sound. So what is truly dangerous, truly dominant thinking? It is the observing mind, a mind that reads the room, sees the patterns, anticipates the opponent, and refuses to be ruled by emotion. Picture this. At a family dinner, someone asks you in front of everyone, "How will you survive on that tiny salary?" Most people jump to defend themselves or lash out in anger. But imagine calmly meeting their eyes, giving a small smile and saying nothing more. The awkward silence. That becomes your weapon. Humans hate uncertainty. When you break their expected script, they feel off balance, anxious, exposed. Let me ask you, have you ever shut someone down with your calm and they had no idea how to react? Drop your story in the comments. I read each one. NZ explained further. Arguments are rarely about the truth. They are about power. People argue not because they want truth, but because they want to protect their beliefs. If those beliefs crumble, their entire worldview feels threatened. Picture a modern workplace. Some bosses use manipulative criticism to maintain power. If you jump to defend yourself, you expose your fear, making it easy for them to exploit you. But if you simply nod and say, "Understood," then stay silent, they lose the fuel they crave. Psychology has proven that in conflict, silence triggers a danger scan in the human brain. The brain scrambles. Why isn't he talking? Did he see through me? Is he about to explode? The amygdala lights up, flooding the mind with fear, projection, and paranoia. The aggressor starts to feel uneasy. Brother, have you noticed this online? When a troll spams hateful comments, if you don't reply, eventually they break down and contradict themselves, starving for attention. Your silence is their collapse. That is what NZ meant. Silence is a language. It's not passive. It's an active form of control. When others are frantic, your steadiness feels like a giant cliff, unshakable, unmovable, crashing their momentum. Let me toss another question your way. If someone throws petty insults at you during a party, could you just look at them and say nothing? Think about it and leave a comment. You might discover something powerful. NZ once said, most people argue to protect their fragile beliefs, not because they are sure of truth. If you force them to face their own words, they collapse in self-doubt. That is far more powerful than any clever comeback. Society rarely teaches us this. From childhood, we're trained to explain, to fight back, to prove ourselves. But these reflexes make us emotional puppets. NZ pointed out that the truly powerful person is the one who needs no approval, no validation, and no persuasion. Here's another story. In a divorce negotiation, the husband repeatedly tried to provoke the wife with moral shaming, hoping for an outburst to use against her in court. But she calmly replied, "I've heard what you said," then stayed silent. His entire strategy crumbled because he had no weakness to exploit. Brother, if you followed me here, I'm proud of you. You're beginning to understand that silence isn't emptiness. It's power. It is the coiled energy before a strike, the awareness that lets you see clearly before you act. Brother, if you want to truly grasp the power of silence, you must first understand the chaos it stirs in the minds of others. Don't be fooled by appearances. That chaos runs far deeper than any loud argument ever could. People think silence is just emptiness, but as NZ taught us, silence is a mirror. When you refuse to answer, to explain, to defend, you don't simply shut down the noise. You trap the other person inside their own thoughts. Picture this. Someone is attacking you, throwing insults, expecting a fight. You calmly hold their gaze, unmoved, silent. In that moment, they lose direction. Because most people do not speak to communicate. They speak to escape their own fear. Your silence is like a blade, cutting through the illusion and exposing their emptiness. Psychology confirms this. In conflict, if you go silent, the aggressor often feels judged, and that sense of being judged makes them panic. Brother, have you ever been in an argument and you suddenly went quiet, and just your stare shut the other person down? That power is sharper than any shout, because the human brain will rush to fill the uncertainty with the worst fears, often scaring itself more than any opponent ever could. Let me ask you, have you ever made someone break down just by staying silent? Share that story in the comments. I'd love to see how you've used this force. Silence has another terrifying feature. It triggers old wounds, long-buried shame, fears of being ignored, fears of abandonment. When you refuse to react, the other person realizes, my words have no impact. My attack has no meaning. That defeat, that sense of being worthless, can drown them. Enzal said, what you see as silence may feel like surrender, but its true terror is that it pushes the opponent to doubt themselves. Picture this. A manager publicly criticizes you, hoping you'll slip up, exposing yourself. If you defend, they'll dig deeper into your weaknesses. But if you calmly say, understood, then go silent, their whole plan collapses. They can't read you, and their power withers. Here's another question, brother. Next time someone tries to provoke you, will you dare to break them down with nothing but silence? Write your answer in the comments. NZ warned us that too many people think silence is submission. Yes, passive silence is surrender, but what we are building here is something different. Active silence. Silence charged with intention, a calm that is collecting information, waiting for the perfect time to strike. Active silence is not weakness. It is control. Like a sniper hidden in the shadows, watching every move, waiting for that one clear shot. And when the moment comes, one simple, precise word can end the entire game. This takes tremendous mental strength, because you must kill the need to prove yourself. Remember, truth does not need an explanation. It simply is. Brother, maybe by now you see it. Society trained you to explain, to justify, to please. But NZ showed us that is a chain for the weak. You must rise beyond needing to be understood, into a state where you are the power itself. In that state, your silence is an unbreakable shield. Here's another modern example. A manipulative partner tries to provoke you, hoping you'll react, fall apart. But you breathe steadily, calmly reply, thanks for your opinion, and turn inward. They panic. Because without your emotional feedback, they have nothing to control. Their manipulation collapses. One final reminder, don't confuse silence with endurance. True silence is active, present, aware. Like a stone statue that cannot be shaken, but seems to stare right through you. That is the dominant silence NZ spoke of, never the silence of defeat. Brother, I truly hope you start practicing this in your life. Don't let others define your silence. Use it to redefine the entire situation. No explanations, no approval, no submission. Just stand there, solid as a rock,